the pronunciation of the other person's name?
Pero Aguayo Jr.
Okay, and at this time, ladies and gentlemen, without any further introduction, we want to bring on professional wrestler who has appeared for WWE during the Deep South days. He's also appeared on TNA. His name is Nigel Sherod. Welcome to the show, Nigel Sherod.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Now, Nigel, how do we pronounce your last name?
Well, I always tell people, several people pronounce it Sherod. I just always say, I've been called worse. So however you want to say it,
okay,
it's fine with me. So,
okay.
But anyway, sad Monday to hear about the Wild Child. I like that you guys did a tribute to him at the start of the show. He was a good kid.
Yeah, I've been in the ring with him a few times, and I thought he had a lot of potential.
Well, he had the size and he had the desire, and he was a young guy, 22, I think, and so therefore he made a couple little young mistakes, by maybe saying something to the wrong person. I remember he was always very strong-willed and had his opinion and wasn't afraid to share it, which I admired because I was very much the same way, and still am. But I hate that he's gone. But maybe, some good can come out of it. People being more aware to maybe, stay away from certain substances and whatnot. And we really don't know all the details surrounding it, but I, understand that maybe there was, too much use of pain medication or something like that. And I hate it because he was a good kid, and he's leaving a lot of fans and a lot of friends, and of course his family behind. And I always enjoyed working with him, and so you always hate to hear that.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to ask you, the first time I saw you I was in the crowd, and you were at Deep South, and you were an announcer. Now, how did you get to be with Deep South and the WWE at that time?
Well, this is going back a while now, but let me see if I can remember the story correctly. I think what the original thing was, they were having ring announcer tryouts, and so naturally, I think I was the tender age of 18, and I just kind of gotten in a couple of years before, and it started when I was 16, and so I went and tried out. I was in Myrtle Beach that week, and they said, "Yeah, come to the tryout." So I rushed home early from the big vacation, went and tried out. They liked me, but they picked someone else anyway. Well, as it were, they needed some help backstage and some camera operators and stuff like that. So I said, well, I'll be glad to do it. So anyway, long story short, I was there for a couple of weeks, and then we were going to start up television. And so Paul Heyman comes down, and I don't think this was to the crowd. I don't think anybody in the audience knew that he was there. But he had come down and given a nice motivational speech and things like that to all the boys, and if anybody had any questions, to ask him. And of course, naturally, I want to say, how can I get into this and be an announcer? That, and what was your advice? And of course, at that time, I'm 18. I've not really met a lot of big name guys. And here's one of my favorite guys of all time, talking to us and really inspiring us. So anyway, Matt Stryker was down there, and I was waiting in line, and Stryker saw me, and he said, "Nigel, what's up? What do you want to ask Paul about? Maybe I can help." And I just told him the situation, that I wasn't really there to be a camera guy. I wanted to be an announcer, and that's what I had my mindset on. And so anyway, he said, well, I tell you what, here's the advice I'll give you. Go home, interview a cardboard cutout. Do you have a cardboard cutout? Yes, I've got one of Elvis. I'm a big Elvis fan. And he said, well, go home, interview that, make it entertaining, and then maybe they'll, pick you up as an announcer. So that week I went home, filmed an interview with Cardboard Cutout, made it entertaining. Jody Hamilton, Bill DeMott, loved it. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to give you this tryout this week. And so anyway, I passed the tryout. And so then, therefore, I was the play-by-play guy for all the episodes of Deep South. So that's a long story, but that's how it all happened.
Hello, Nigel. I'm Brian, the host of the show. I want to thank you for being on today, sir. I want to ask you. Speaking of Deep South wrestling, what are your thoughts on Bill DeMott?
Pleasure to be on the show, and I was, not a lot of people, but a couple people have asked me. And again, I was his broadcast partner, and so I dealt with him, every week, but not in necessarily a physical training capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I will say this. I think that the allegations of him being too physical or demanding too much and so on and so forth, and I know there are certain people that will disagree, but you oftentimes don't hear anything except from guys that are done with the company.
Right.
Which to me is
true.
kind of like sour grapes. As well as, and I was discussing this with another wrestler who's a veteran wrestler, and let's not forget that one of the most successful wrestlers of all time, Hulk Hogan, whenever he went in to train for his first session, he had his leg broken by the trainer, Hiro Matsuda.
Right.
And then he came back. But you see, a long time ago, you actually had to, and it's not news to anybody, but it used to be a lot harder to get into the business than it is now. And so I think Bill DeMott was trained alongside Taz with Johnny Rodz as his trainer. And Johnny Rodz is a WWE Hall of Famer and has a gym up in New York or New Jersey, one of the two. I can't remember off the top of my head. And, so he was brought into the business the hard way, where you have to work really hard. You get beat up. You pay a massive amount of dues. Very protective of the business. So as far as I'm concerned, I can appreciate that, and I understand that. Now they pay you instead of you paying, for gas and food and everything like that to go train. They pay you now at the WWE Performance Center to go train and be a part of the show and learn. So not only are you getting a paycheck, but you're also taking in all this valuable information that people like Mick Foley, for example, traveled 6 hours or 8 hours one way to go train with Dominic DeNucci. I mean, my opinion is this. Bill is just trying to protect the business. But on the flip side of that, there's not any room in today's world for racial slurs, any kind of comments that are not, they're just too colorful, And so I think that's where he slipped up. If he made any mistake, that's where it was. But again, if anybody listening, or if you guys have ever been on a football team or whatever, you just play through your injuries. You get called, a bunch of names. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like 8, 9, 10, the coaches being hard on us. We'd be out there in the rain. It would be, 40 degrees or whatever, and, we wouldn't do something right, and we'd be called a bunch of sissies or something even worse. So to me, I just think it's a bunch of grown men that really need to grow a set, and realize that they're being given the world. And so I think DeMott, the only mistake he made was not being politically correct. Other than that, I say DeMott is a great, trainer. And and as far as a commentary partner, working with me to help produce me, he was very hard on me. But again, that helped produce me to becoming a better broadcaster. You see, and that to me, I like that tough love type of thing, because I think, as that mentor, he's drilling it into you, but yet you want to be able to get up to that next level. So that, and I know that's a long-winded answer, but that's really how I feel about it, to be quite honest with you.
So basically, what you're saying is, sometimes the knowledge that
You still there?
Ryan? I don't know what happened.
Okay.
He'll be back in a second. What was your feelings with Neil Pruitt? I know he was a big with the cameras and all that stuff. How did he help you with your career?
Well, Neil was a great guy and still is, and teaches at a college now, I think in Gwinnett. Mm-hmm. And he would pull me aside and suggest different things. And whenever we would do the stand-up in the back, to open the show or do interviews or whatever like that, he was very influential. He mentored me along, just advice that he could give me because, again, he had been working with WCW since it really started on Turner. So he was very familiar with Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and those guys, other announcers, and, really was able to give me some insights, some tips, put me in contact with Mr. Ross, just do a lot of things for me. I remember the first time that I went backstage to a show was because Neil had requested it from the office, because not everybody at that point would go to a television taping. There might have been a select few people that go to the tapings. Now, as I understand, which I'm not 100% sure, but the majority of the Performance Center guys, if they're in that area, are going to be there. But at the time, it was a little bit different. It was a little more selective. And so he was a big influence, and would do anything, would go out of his way to help me look better on camera. And, if I messed up, and then after the fact, tell me things that I could do to improve that. So he's always been an invaluable resource for me in terms of being an announcer and a great friend. So that's how I feel about Neil. Excuse me.
Okay. Basically, what I was saying just a few minutes ago, Nigel, was basically what you were saying was a lot of times in life, people go to give you knowledge and you think they're being tough on you and everything, but in the long run, it's actually to help you out and to better yourself in your career.
Right. And I'm not going to sit here and say, because it would be a lie, and anybody's human being would know it is, because we've all worked with people that we don't like. And I'm very sure there were students there that he did not like and he was hard on. It might have been a little rough with him. However, to me, I didn't get paid to train. And, as far as in the ring stuff. And these guys, they're given a silver platter. And I think that DeMott was just trying to give them a taste of what the business is because, and this is what I was telling, a couple people that we were all kind of talking about this. I said, well, the deal with DeMott is this. He was never, and to answer your question, yes, but he was never that guy that you could go get a hug from. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it doesn't work that way with him. But this business is very tough. And especially the further up you go in the business, the tougher it is because people are always vying to get your spot. People are always trying to work you, to somehow get an advantage. And it's a very competitive business. As Jim Duggan always tells me and reminds me, there's maybe 120 roster spots on the WWE, if that. Half than that at TNA. And so on. So as you go down the line, it just goes down. And you got to think, how hard is it to get into the NFL or to get into the National Baseball League or whatever? It's very difficult. And so you take that and then you whittle those numbers down, almost 90%. And that's how hard it is to stay in the WWE or at that level with the job. So in closing with that, what I'm saying is DeMott's tough love, it actually gets you ready for that atmosphere because you don't have any friends at that level. I don't care what anybody says. Even when you're at the top, people are coming after you, left and right, and it's just, it's good that he instilled some of that knowledge and just some of that tough love personally, even, even with the commentary, and not letting me get away with little stuff, because then you become a perfectionist, and you know to watch your back, and you know what to look out for, and you don't develop those emotions. I'm not saying it's not okay to have friends in the business, but you have to know what kind of business you're in. Sometimes you have to be very shrewd, not necessarily on the independents, but at that next level, it's a totally different animal that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, that's where his heart was in a lot of that, being tough to these guys. But to answer your question, yes, I think that he was just trying to educate them and let them learn stuff. And unfortunately, in today's world, everybody is too concerned about our feelings and emotions, which is, that's fine. That's fine. But you're talking about professional sports. And within professional sports, we just don't have time for that, to be quite honest with you. It's, you're either going to go out there and perform or not, but it's a totally different animal than anything else.
That's true. I want to let all the fans know, if you want to ask Nigel a question, you can call in at 773-897-6289 and press 1. We will get you on the phone with Nigel to ask a question. I want to ask you, Nigel, how was it for you being on Jay Leno at the age of 14?
Well, that was a lot of fun. I was an Elvis impersonator, and that's how it happened. And my friend Joni owns a museum in Cornelia, Georgia. And so, anyway, but in the museum, they house some very different Elvis relics. But one of them was a wart, W-A-R-T, that was removed from his, I believe, right wrist in 1956, right before everything just kind of took off. And anyway, so that's like one of the centerpiece things, which is really strange. Well, at the time, Jay Leno was doing this thing called Roadside Attractions, which was directed by Kevin Smith. I don't know if you're familiar with Kevin Smith, Mallrats, Dogma, Jane Silent Bob, he's Silent Bob. But he wrote and directed all those. And anyway, so we did that whole segment, and that's how I wound up on it. But I loved it. I mean, I was the coolest kid in high school for the next week or so. And then I went back to being the weird guy that dressed up in Elvis jumpsuits and liked pro wrestling. But for the time, and it's been one of those things where I can say, hey, look, I did it, and point back and say, hey, that was a lot of fun. So enjoyed that immensely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after I saw you as an announcer, the next thing I know is I haven't seen you. I didn't see you for a while. Then the next thing I know, I see you as a wrestler. Now, how did that come about? I know you were trained by Bambi and a few other people. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, so basically, after Deep South closed, and a lot of people weren't happy on the independent scene, and it's all water under the bridge now, mind you. But again, I go back to, and if you're not in the wrestling business, it's kind of hard to understand maybe some of this. I don't know. Makes sense to me, but then again, I've been doing this 11 years, so my mind's a little weird. But whenever you're 18, and I started when I was 16, but I was 18 when I got into the WWE. People work their whole lives to get to that and to even get to the developmental stage. And here's this little kid, basically, 18 years old, walking into this world and, being praised by Heyman and all these other people and being, heralded as this, that, and the other. And it really pisses them off. And now the Deep South is closed and I don't have a job. Well, it's like, screw you, buddy. You would almost think the exact opposite, but for whatever reason, because I was a young kid, I rubbed people the wrong way, I suppose. And this is why I always kind of, and not to go back to Joey necessarily, but this is why I kind of always understood some of his ways, and he would piss some veterans off every now and again, and just because he would be very frank with people, but he was also a kid too, so a lot of people go, this is a kid. we're gonna make sure that he pays his dues and eats shit basically. And so anyway, that happened. Well, so I took some money that I had, and I went to Bambi, and I said, hey, look, I'm a real big Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler mark, and I really want to do this angle like they did in Memphis years ago with Kaufman challenging women, and I think it would be great, and da-da-da-da. And so anyway, so she said, yes, let's do that. So we worked together, trained together, and we finally got it up. And, man, that was a hot little angle that we had going on for quite a little while, and eventually included Peggy Lee. And as it would turn out, by happenstance, TNA called, and they said, we're going to be in Memphis, and we need an Elvis impersonator or an Elvis that can bump. And I said, well, I can't do much, but those are two things that I can do very well. And so it just so happened that at the height of our little angle, that I was involved with the deal with Awesome Kong where she beat me up. And so that kind of even elevated it even further, because I wrestled Kong a couple times thereafter. And so, yeah, but basically that's the story. That all came to transpire. And then once that ran its course, then I just started wrestling, guys and kind of, a regular wrestler, so to speak.
So who did you get any more training from other veterans in the business?
One of our first Pro Kid, Murder One, trained up with me a little bit, and Rick Michaels has always been a mentor, but Bambi and Peggy Lee really showed me a lot. And then from there on, it was just whatever I could pick up from wherever. And when I was a kid, well, a kid in the business, I guess I was a kid in real life too, but Jake the Snake never trained with me in the ring really much, but I was his manager for a short while. And when I say manager, I'm not, not Jimmy Hart or Bobby Heenan. I mean, I really took care of his bookings and appearances and things like that. And this is way before he was sober, so you can imagine my education there on the road with him. But, just watching and listening to him and promo lessons and, imagine being in the car with him for 5 hours and him going over promos with you. You know what I'm saying? And he would be like, give me a wrestler and give me a subject. And it can be as abstract as you want it to be. And I distinctly remember saying, okay, Macho Man Randy Savage and spaghetti. Make those two things work. And he would somehow make them work. So,
right.
And to be honest with you, my view of wrestling is 80 to 90% of it is if people connect with you and buy into your character. 10% of it is the wrestling, because I got news for you. People don't buy tickets to go see people have 5-star matches. They buy tickets to go see people that they can connect to, that impact them somehow, emotionally. That's what sells tickets. And so I was always more interested in that than anything. And of course, I got the in-ring stuff down, but essentially, so that was kind of a weird group of people, but that's who all kind of helped me with my foundation in terms of being a wrestler. So
now you brought up being Jake the Snake's manager. So were
right.
you like his agent? So you like his agent for a short time?
Yeah, essentially that's what I did. I would take bookings for him. I would, arrange the price, get the hotels, so on and so forth.
So did you travel around with him?
Yes, I did. He would fly into if it was in this area. If not, I would just book him and he would show up and fly.
Oh, okay,
wherever.
I gotta ask you something, Nigel, because you brought this up. When I was a kid, I was up at Southern Regional Hospital, and Jake the Snake had a brown hat on and a brown trench coat, and I walked up to this guy who was with him, and I said, "Hey, is that Jake Snake Roberts?" And the guy looked up and looked left and looked right and looked down, and then he leaned over to me and said, "Yeah, but don't tell anybody." Was that actually you?
Not that I can remember. But again, you have to remember. I mean, I don't know how long ago this was, but
it was back in the 90s, back in the early 90s.
No, it wouldn't have been me then. I was more along. Let's see, that's probably around 2003, 2004. It was when I was with him. So this was a long time ago. Or well, not as long ago as the early '90s, but this was a while back, but not that long
ago. Okay. I want to ask you, where did the name As Seen on TV come from that you put on all your shirts and stuff in your trunks?
Well, that all started after. Let's see. I'm trying to think. That started when I did the MTV show. For Lucha Libre USA, and I hosted that television show. And I thought, well, and I was a heel wrestler, so I thought, I guess any kind of language is involved here on the radio. But I thought, boy, what an a-hole you would come off as if you brag about being such a big star. And true to form, I had been on Jay Leno, but I was an Elvis impersonator. I was 14 years old, and it was for a very small segment. And I hosted a bunch of WWE, shows, 75 episodes, and been on WWE Home Video Release, and now I'm on the network, and I've gotten on TNA, and been on their home video and pay-per-view, and then here I was on MTV hosting their show. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great to say Mr. As Seen on TV, because people would go, what a jerk, to brag about these roles. I mean, because the truth of the matter is, if you're really famous, you don't have to brag about it. And people know that. And so that was the psychology behind it. And it just took off, and now I can't get rid of it. People call me that, all the time. I guess because I did it for so long that's just what I've become known as. So there's your story there.
Okay. Speaking of Masked Warrior show, now Lucha Underground is doing very well. I feel it's kind of a precursor to Lucha Underground. Would you go work for them if you had the chance?
Oh, sure. I work for anybody that gives me a paycheck. Right. But yes, you know what? As a matter of fact, for the first time ever, I was able to catch a couple of their episodes, and I actually like the product that they're doing. And I agree with you, Harold, on that Lucha Libre USA kind of was setting the groundwork for that. But I like the way they film it because it's like center stage. It's a smaller arena, and they don't do a lot of promos. They're not long-winded, but the ones that they do are kind of like the ones we did at Lucha Libre USA. They're more like little vignettes where they're filmed almost like movie style, So initially I really didn't like that, but then I go, it's something different. It's a different flavor, And the wrestling is good enough to where if you don't like the little backstage segments, it doesn't take away. And it's only an hour, which is the beauty of it, too, which is the beauty of Lucha Libre USA, was that you didn't have time to get pissed off or bored at it like you would a Monday Night Raw. Nothing against WWE, but it's just a compact show. So yeah, of course I'd go work for them. Right now I have a working relationship with Impact Wrestling. We're not on the road right now, so I'm not really working for them at the time. But yeah, I would love to do anything like that. I love hosting wrestling shows just as much as I love wrestling. So, of course.
That was going to be one of my questions. Do you prefer like the backstage work, or do you prefer, in front of the camera?
Well,
I'm
sure that you know, or maybe you don't, but I've done a lot of backstage stuff, with helping put together shows, promote shows, agent. In fact, I'm still an agent for Hacksaw Jim Duggan. People, people can go different routes nowadays. Social media, you can email them, or you can contact me, and I can see what kind of deal we can work out. But, I've always done that kind of stuff. And so, I like both of them equally, but I can't lie to you. I love being out in front of the people. I love to be able to, and I love either one, being a heel or babyface, being able to get a reaction from those people and having a picture in my mind and saying, this is what I want to happen. Mm-hmm. And then being able to go out there and perform, and that's what happens. There's nothing more enjoyable, I don't think, than that.
I have a little bit of a segment I want to do with you, Nigel. It's It's WrestleMania predictions, and I'm going to ask you 5 WrestleMania matches, and I'm going to see your predictions on the outcome for this coming Sunday's WrestleMania.
Okay.
The first match is John Cena versus Rusev for the United States Championship.
If I were booking it, Rusev would go over. I'm not booking it, so I'm going to say Cena goes over.
Okay.
But that's my prediction, is that Cena will go over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns.
Reigns, I think, is clearly who they're going with. So, and with the contract negotiations and all that, I think that it's almost, in a way obvious that's going to be your winner. Although they could pull one on us, but I think it's Reigns.
Okay. Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins.
That's a tough one, but I think Seth Rollins is going to win. He's been, selling for Orton now on television, and I think it's going to be Rollins.
Okay. The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt.
See, that's a tough one, but I think that you have to give it to the Undertaker because they already had him beat last year, and you don't want to do it again, but you don't want to kill Wyatt either. So, but I would think that the Undertaker's going over and make everybody feel good, maybe forget about last year.
Okay, and last but not least, the match that everybody's buzzing about and excited about, Sting versus Triple H.
I'm a huge Sting fan, and the clear answer there is Sting, in my opinion. I mean, you're not going to bring a guy in for one match to bury him.
Yeah, that's very true, and I gotta say that whenever he shows up on any of WWE television, it's like the whole show changes. I mean, he adds excitement and everything to the show. I mean, I remember back in, there's a friend of mine that I talked to, and he asked me. He says, well, how can Sting beat up 20 people at one time? I said, did you ever see Nitro? He said, no, I didn't watch that. I watched it, the WWE, and I said, in Nitro, he had 20 NWO guys coming at him. He took that bat and, he beat them up. I said, this is Sting. You're messing with him, and Sting's a legend, and that's what he's about. Is fighting against the odds. Of a bunch of people going against him.
Sure. Well, I mean, he got a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Taking out 10 or 15 guys is not that hard. But I mean, he's a legend, like you said. So I mean, they're not going to bury him. It's kind of like Hulk Hogan. I mean, how many people do you see ever win a match with a leg drop? It doesn't happen. Hogan does it, all of a sudden it takes on a whole new meaning.
That's true.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit here, real quick. I know you like. You there?
I'm here.
Hello?
Yeah, you there?
Oh, okay. Something made noise. I know you like country music, and I know you liked a little Jimmy Dickens. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah. I remember the first time I went to the Opry, I was a little kid. I don't really remember it. I think it was like 3 or 4. But thereafter, I went again probably when I was like 15 or so. Brad Paisley was there, 15 or 16, and he was one of my favorites. And then, because I was a Brad Paisley fan, I knew who Jimmy Dickens was because Brad had him on his albums and music videos and such as this. Well, I went to the Opry. I don't know, this has been a while back, but I mean 6 or 7 years or whatnot. But I walked into there, and this is at the Ryman Auditorium because during the Christmas season, the Rockettes rent out the Opry House, and they do their show there. And so this is at the Ryman, where they had the Opry for so many years prior to building the Opry House. And I just distinctly remember walking down the aisle to my seat, and Jimmy was up there telling jokes, and this suit had a million on it, and was sparkling all over the room. And he was telling these crazy jokes that, somebody that was late 80s, and then he lived into 94, so, early 90s. Just you wouldn't imagine them even, A, having that much charisma and ability to stand up there at that age and perform, but then B, they were just funny jokes to hear an old guy saying, you know. So, and I just remember being captivated by that. So I wrote him a letter, and lo and behold, his manager got a hold of me, and I was invited to be his guest at the Grand Ole Opry, and was invited backstage, and then we developed a friendship. And actually, Jimmy enjoyed wrestling, and so that's how that kind of came to fruition. So every time I went up to Nashville, which became more and more frequent as I became closer and closer, you know, we would always hang out, at least have a drink before the show. He would have a glass of wine and a cigarette probably about as tall as he was. So, you know, I mean, it was one of those neat things that I truly cherish that, because he gave me so many lessons on being an entertainer and having people remember you, and the importance of dressing nice, and the importance of being different, you know, and things like that as a performer. And, you know, I loved the guy. I loved his music. I loved his jokes. I loved him. And he was a great influence just as an entertainer and as a friend.
What about any other country?
Can I add something more to that now that I think about it?
Oh,
don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the things that he always told me was that he goes, "I've never turned down an autograph." Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not in the same position as he is. You know, I'm definitely no legend, and I haven't had records on RCA and had the number one hit in the country and things like that. But he always instilled that in me. I've never turned down an autograph, never turned down a picture, because, you know, you always want to take care of the people that come and support you. And that's one of the things that I look at and I go, at 93, and I think whenever he told me this, he was 93, to be able to stand there and there's a line, you know, and a lot of times we'd be at the bar and there'd be a line of people once they realized who it was. And you can't really mistake him. He's got a 10-gallon hat on. He's 4'11", you know, 94.
That's as big as him, yeah.
Right. So, but he would always take pictures, always sign autographs, never an issue. Never an issue. Always so gracious with his time, even if he wasn't feeling well. And so as an entertainer, I think that's probably one of the most important things that I can take away from our friendship.
Well, I see that we've got about 4 minutes left. Is there anything that you want to promote, Nigel, to the fans?
You know, if anybody wants to get in contact with me, I'm not hard to find. You know, I'm on Facebook. That's what I do most of the time. Or you can email me. It's just my name, Nigel, Nigel Sherod @gmail.com. And I'm, you know, but unfortunately right now, well, I say unfortunately, I mean, fortunately I'm booked up, but I mean, every weekend I have something going on most Saturdays. But I was, you know, I like going to different places. So if it can work out sometime in the future, I would love to do that. And I would, you know, just encourage everybody to support your local wrestling, and whatever wrestling you choose to support on television, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, Impact, Raw. You know, it's just nice to see people passionate about wrestling, and, you know, it never hurts to build that up and to keep the fan base stronger, because that's what we're all. If we don't support it, then there's not going to be anything there. So
that's true.
Real quick,
go ahead.
I just wanted to add a quick question to Nigel. There's been a few moves recently, wrestling moves, that seem to be kind of hurting, you know, a few wrestlers. Do you think some of these need to be banned, or do you think it's just maybe a matter of training or something like that?
Maybe you're talking about the Styles Clash. I don't know.
Yeah, Styles Clash.
That's the one that I've really heard.
Yeah, and I think something else too, but yeah.
Well, from what I understand, I've never taken the move, to be quite honest with you. But from what I understand, people are just taking it the wrong way.
Okay.
And maybe didn't ask enough questions before they actually got out there and wrestled. And it's such a mistake you can make as a wrestler. If you can't do something, just tell somebody or ask somebody before you go out there and do it. I mean, that's the biggest thing right there, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to wind up getting injured. But I don't think for the first 10 years that AJ used that move that anybody got injured, from what I can recall. I might be wrong in that, but you know, it never hurts to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for being on, Nigel, and we hope that you'll come back again in the future.
Yep.
It's an
Thank you,
absolute
Nigel.
pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
You're
Have a great day.
You're very
Take
welcome, sir.
Right.
Yeah, have a great week.
All right, you all too.
God bless. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was pro wrestler Nigel Sherod, and we will be back on the air this coming Thursday, and I will let you know, everybody at the Wrestle Lounge, I'll let you know about who we have coming on, but we do have an up and coming country music singer, and I've got to speak with her later this week, and we will be announcing that later this week. And we are currently, I can announce, we're currently in negotiations with a former NWA superstar back from the 1980s. He was very, very well known back in the 80s for a lot of time in NWA. He had classic feuds with the Four Horsemen, and he's been a United States champion, a tag team champion. I think he's also been a six-man tag team champion. But he has been around, so we will let you know when we get a confirmation with him. And until Thursday, we will let you know the time and everything. Probably Wednesday or Thursday show. But for me and Harold, we thank you for tuning in to today's tribute show to two fallen wrestlers, and we thank you for listening in with Nigel Sherod being on the show today. And for me and Harold, so long, everybody, from the Wrestling Lounge.
So long. Have a nice day. Goodbye. God bless.